So, welcome to the BMC and the Startup Visa Workshop. As some of you may know, we're going to be looking at the business model canvas in general. And then we will move on to the later on in the afternoon where we talk about the Startup Visa and everything that goes along with that. So yeah, here's just a quick rundown of the agenda. I'm going to be going through what a business model is, and then the 10 or 9 different types of business model. Then James will take over and talk to you more in depth about the business model canvas and then the value proposition canvas within that as well, which will help you be able to fill in the gaps in your business model canvas as you go. Then we'll have a little bit of a break. And then James is going to talk you through a case study, which will help you in the breakout session that we've got set up for you. And then later on, I'll be looking at the Home Office criteria around what is necessary for your startup visa application. Then we'll go through the application process step by step, just so you know exactly what you need to do at what stage. And then we've got Sian coming in from the SU, who is going to offer some of her tips and advice around the startup visa and the application process and what happens after if you are endorsed and then you receive your startup visa as well. So lots of information to take in just over 2 hours, but we'll have a Q&A at the end, raise any questions as we go along, and we'll do our best to monitor the chat and keep up with your questions as we go. So for those of you that have never met us before, this is our team. We are run by the head of startups, Andy. He oversees our entire team and everything that we put on as the Essex Startups Group. Myself and Lauren are enterprise officers. We offer student advice. We run workshops and events similar to this one we've got here. And then Christian is the assistant to our team. All 4 of us are employed by the university. We are normally, or would be, based on campus at Studio X. And then we have our entrepreneurs in residence, James and Magda. James is here today. They are with us once or twice a week and bring in their expertise and knowledge from outside of the university. We all have different backgrounds and different experiences with our business and our startups, so all bring something slightly different to the overall team. So that's us. So let's get underway. So the first thing we're going to talk about and look at is, what is a business model in general? The business model is essential to when you are doing your startup. You need to understand how business models work and ideally which business model is right for you. Sorry, someone's just entered. There we go. So in this example, this is Gassman's model. So this is probably one of the first main attempts at describing how the business model can work. And from the research he put in at this stage, he found that most good businesses and any good business model should really be comprised of these 3 following elements: a value proposition, a profit formula or revenue model, and a value chain. So a value proposition, that's your what. So this is the way that you intend to create and capture the value for your customers with the product or service that you are hoping to provide. So it's, what is it you're offering? How are you adding that value to people's lives? And ideally, how are you adding more value to your customers' lives than what your competitors are already offering? Then we go to the revenue model part. This is your why. So this is how you intend to make revenue by delivering on the value proposition that you've stated to your customer base. So how are you making or creating those revenue streams? How does your product or service bring money into your business? Why is your idea profitable? You need to think about all of these things as you're piecing together your business model. Basically, why will people pay for your product or service? And that is what you need to understand, so then you can transfer that in your marketing and advertising and in your product or service as a whole. And then finally, we have your value chain, and this is your how. So this section really highlights how you intend to use your key resources and your key processes to deliver your value proposition. And you want to deliver it profitably to your customer, ideally. So this is where you'll dig deeper into the BMC as we go further on into the afternoon. You'll understand a bit more about your key resources and processes and partners and things like that. So this is how you intend to use those assets to your advantage to deliver your product or service to your customer base. As you can see, it's formulated a triangle which suggests it's quite intrinsically linked to who your customer is. So it's how you are adding value to their lives. And we do keep repeating things like this because it is so essential that you understand how your product or service adds this value to your customers' lives above and beyond your competitors and what's already out there in the market. And then, like we said earlier, how you're creating revenue from this, and then how you'll deliver this effectively to your customer base. So it all works in this circle of what, why, how. As you can imagine, since this was created, Gaspman's work has been built on quite a lot. And this has led organically to the business model canvas, which we use today in a lot of our advice sessions, in a lot of our events, and what will be a requirement of your startup visa application as well, if you are part of that process. So what we're going to look at now is the 10 business model structures that are the most common. And what we've done is related them to a cow, just to make it as easy to understand and to digest as possible. So if we look at the first type of business model, this is the most basic, the most simple. This is the asset model. So with the asset model, basically, you buy a calf, you nurture that calf to adulthood, and then you sell that cow for profit. It's very simple. It's you've got a product, you've created it, and you sell it. There are no additional avenues to explore when it comes to the cow in particular, or your product or service. You just buy and sell the cow for profit. It's really that simple. And a lot of people will start with this basic business model. So the next kind of model we've got is direct sales. So for this instance with the cow in particular, you own the cow and then you sell the milk it produces directly to the public. And this can be via a channel that you own or rent yourself. With this example, there's no necessity for a fixed location or anything like that. You can sell your product absolutely anywhere via your channels. You can even go door to door, like a milkman. So an example of this kind of direct sales model will be, if you've heard of the cosmetics brand Avon, they have representatives that will go around the streets, they'll knock on your door, they'll give you a brochure, you look through the products that you like, and then you create the transaction that way. So it's direct, they come directly to your door, you place an order, they give you the products, you give them their money. So yes, you've raised this cow, but you're selling the products that the cow has produced for you. If we move on to the next model, this is the freemium model. So you may hear freemium coming up quite a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. It's very digitally focused. So in this example, you own the cow, you give away the milk for free, which might seem counterproductive, but what you do is charge for the container. So nobody's going to come along and take the milk away in their hands. They need that container. So you're giving them the idea that they're getting a lot of good value for free, but there is this additional thing that they need, and that's where you create your revenue stream. You may also offer things like selling advertising space on this carton to well-known companies that can then create additional revenue streams for you. So with this type of business model, the examples that I've chosen to talk about here is, you've probably heard of the game Candy Crush, you've most certainly heard of Spotify, the music company. So with these two examples, they're really good examples of freemium models. You get the basics for free. You can play their game and a few hundred levels for absolutely free. That's what they want. They want to draw you in. You get obsessed with the game. All you want to do is get onto the next level. But what they do is then they ask you to pay for additional content. So the original, the basic version is for free. And if you want to level up quickly, if you want to buy gems, hearts, whatever it is, then you'll be paying for the privilege. And it's similar to Spotify. A lot of us can use Spotify just to search for some music that we want to listen to. But if we want to avoid things like adverts, if we want a larger catalog to search through, then you need to pay for that privilege. So what they've done is drawn you in with the free product, and then they've excited you with these add-ons, but then you have to pay for it. The key to this model is to understand and appreciate that people can generally be persuaded to part with their money if you get the incentives right for them. So with Spotify, for example, I may want to listen to an entire album, and then I find that each song has an advert in between, and I can't stand listening to adverts. So of course I'm going to pay to get rid of them. So that's the key. It's finding a way to offer something that will really draw people in, and then you hit them with a price later on down the road. So if we move on to the next model, this is the subscription model. So it is slightly different. In this instance, you own the cow, for example. You sell the milk for about £1.80 a carton in the shops, in supermarkets, things like that. But what you do is then you offer a subscription service to people, and they'll get the milk for £1.50 a carton. So they're saving money, but you've got them signed into a deal. So what this does for you is create a long-term commitment for your business. It's a cheaper price for your customers. So to them, it's obviously very appealing, but it's also this guaranteed and recurring income for you that you can then plot into your financial forecast. You can really plan a bit more with, because you know exactly what is going to come in every month. And like we said, the customer is getting a benefit out of it because they actually get the product cheaper than they would if they went into the shops and bought it on an ad hoc basis. So an example of this type of model could be magazine subscriptions. I'm not sure if people even get magazine subscriptions anymore, they might do. Basically what you'll see is when you go into a supermarket and you see all the magazines in the racks, they're at a set price. When you sign up to the subscription package, you will then get those at a cheaper price. They're often delivered directly to your door, things like that. So what you are highlighting to your customer in this model is that they are investing in this ease of access. They're getting it delivered. They're getting it maybe before it even hits the shop floor, and they're getting a reduced rate at the same time. So not only are you providing this more predictable revenue stream, but you're offering all of these great additional values to your customer at the same time. Then we'll move on to, where's that gone? To the next model, which is the membership model. So it is slightly different from the subscription model. In this instance, you own your cow and you sell its milk, but your members who have signed up will then get additional special access to other things. So the other things you might offer in this instance might be more information, like you can find out the cow's name, where it lives, how old it is, its handler, its feeder, things like that. But also you are offered additional products. So everyone can buy the milk in the shop, but as a member, you get access to their cheese range and their yogurt range and their creams. You may even be offered a day trip to visit this cow that has produced these products for you. So again, it's about finding those additional values that you can, value propositions that you can add to your original to create extra value for your customers and therefore extra revenue for you as well. So with this model, an example I would use is Colchester Zoo. Hopefully some of you have been able to attend before the pandemic. If not, definitely attend afterwards. It's a lovely place. So everyone that attends Colchester Zoo will pay this set entrance fee. However, if you are already a zoo member, and you will have had to pay for the privilege to be a zoo member, obviously, you will then get your entrance fee at a reduced rate. This also extends to other discounts, such as discounts in the outlets that they have, discounts in the restaurants. You can even get reduced entrance rates for your friends and family as well. So again, by paying this extra surplus on top of what other people pay, in the long run, you're getting all of these discounts and reductions, which adds value to your experience in general. So the next model we're going to look at is the franchise model. You may well have heard of this. So with the franchise model, it is slightly different. You don't own a cow at all. You own the brand. In this case, you own Milk Limited. You also own the processes behind the production of the product or service, and you own the systems. And you have all of this so you can sell cow milk, but you don't own the cow. So what you want is people with cows, and people who own cows want your help because you have already got this brand. You've already got all of these. Don't do that. already got all of these processes in place that they can then benefit from. All they know is I've got a cow and it creates milk. What do I do with that? Whereas you come in with this brand and say, I've got all of these additional benefits of my brand. People know my name. People know how I sell things. People know my channels. People know me. So let me sell the milk for you, basically. And a very obvious example of this is places like McDonald's and other fast food outlets. What they do in their franchise model is they sell the rights to operate their brand. So what you would do is if you bought a McDonald's franchise, you'd be purchasing this fully operational space with all the equipment, or possibly the staffing, and the benefits mostly of the reputation of this brand and the brand loyalty that it has already managed to establish. So you're not starting from this ground base. You're walking into an already established business with a name and a reputation, but you're obviously paying for that. So that is franchise. Then the next model we'll look at is called a loss leader model. So a loss leader doesn't sound great to start with, but in this instance, you own your cow. Again, you sell its milk in a carton for £1.80. And what you're doing is you're focusing again a lot on your brand and your reputation. You are driven by your values and ethics that are underlying in your business. And what you find is that your customer base are buying into that. They're buying into your ideals. They're buying into your values. They understand you as a brand, and therefore they are convinced to pay this small amount for a carton of milk, but because they love your brand so much, they're then willing to pay £30 for a block of cheese that you make as well. You've convinced them with your values, your ethics, your brand, that you are the company that your customers want to stick with. So they're willing to then pay maybe above and beyond for the other products that you might provide in the future. So the key to this model is attracting these customers, attracting that customer base initially with these low price deals, and then you make up the difference in revenue by creating such a great company that people want to purchase more from you, and they will end up purchasing those more expensive items in the long run. So if we think of an example here, I'd use the example of things like games consoles, like the PS4, the PS5, Xbox One, etc. The initial price is relatively cheap. Okay, it's not really cheap, but it's relatively cheap compared to the add-ons that you then get for it. So you've bought the console, that's great. It might come with one game, but to get real value out of that console, you need to keep buying games, and they're £50 a pop, even if you order them online. And then there's, oh, but what about the PlayStation Online subscription? I mean, I've got to pay for that, otherwise I won't have access to these games or the store. Oh, and then there's the VR headset, which is actually double the price of a console. But to get more and more value out of this console, I need to keep buying these additional extras to make my experience better for me. So that's how the loss leader model works. You base your production on providing something fairly, not relatively basic, but relatively low cost, and then you create all of these additional extras and add-ons that people just can't live without. If we move on to the next one, I'll put something up in the chat. Yep, that's brilliant. So the next one is the on-demand model. So on-demand, as you can imagine, is instant on-demand kind of service. And in this instance, you own a cow. And what you've done now is you've built this app, and your customers can order their milk whenever they need it via the app. And what you do is you charge for that instant delivery, that instant access to your product. They don't have to go to the shop. They don't have to wait for the normal milk round. They're paying for the privilege of getting that product or service on demand when they want it. So the product access is more immediate. It's quicker than the regular channels in other areas where you might be selling your product. And for this example, you may be aware of a clothing company called George at Asda. Asda have all these clothes as well. It's called George. And they provide this on-demand provision as well. what you'll find is if you go into Asda stores across the country, the bigger they are, they'll have these sections of clothing and shoes and school uniforms, etc. And they're available, obviously, for you to walk into the store and buy. But what you might find is the products are dependent on their stock rotation. It's dependent on how many sizes of one particular pair of jeans they might stock. It's dependent on the season of whether it's swimming costumes or it's parka jackets, things like that. But what they offer also is the option to order online, where you can see their entire catalogue and you can order it all for an additional cost. You can pay a delivery cost. Often with this example, you can get it delivered to the store for free. So you're getting access to this additional value, but it will come at a cost. So either the cost is you have to go into store to pick it up, or you have to pay to have it delivered to your home. But the point is, you're not relying solely on what is on that shop floor at your local Asda, unless you're prepared to travel around the whole country and go to all the shops. So this way, you're being offered the entire range on demand. So that is as simple as that, really. If we look at the next model, this is the Zifferblatt model, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So in this case, you own the cow, and then customers you invite to come to your farm, and they can drink all the milk they want for free, and it's a lovely day out. And what you're going to do is charge them for the amount of time that they're there. So it's not like a traditional entrance fee. It's not like you have to pay for every cup of milk you have. You can have as much milk as you want, but depending on how long you stay at the farm, talking to the cow, drinking your milk, they're going to charge you on that basis instead. So this is time spent rather than quantity consumed. And the ideal example for this is actually a cafe called Zifferblatt. I think they've got 2 outlets at the moment based in Coventry and London. And what they do is it's a pay-as-you-go shared community workspace. So what they do is they offer this workspace to you. They provide free tea, free coffee, free snacks, free Wi-Fi, things like that, all throughout the day. But what you're doing is paying per minute to be there. There's a maximum stay of 4 hours. So again, this provides the company some sort of guaranteed income. If I've come along and I've booked a 4-hour slot, I know I'm charging £10 an hour. I know I'm getting £40 out of this person. If I've given them 3 cups of tea and 2 slices of cake in 4 hours, I'm really making quite a lot of money out of that. So the revenue here, as well, if we're using that as the example, you can see that the revenue will quite outweigh the outgoings that you are having to pay for to keep your customers happy. So with this example, it's not just the products, it's the quality of the service and the experience that you are providing to your customers. All of these seemingly insignificant products, tea, coffee, snacks, etc., are all just part of the deal. You're asking them to pay for the experience and what your cafe in this example can provide them as a community hub, as somewhere to sit and chat with their friends, and they know they can just come and order food and drink as they want to. So again, if you think about it that way, the customers are getting peace of mind that they know exactly how much they're spending as well. If they know it's £10 an hour and they've decided to stay for 2 hours, they know they're spending £20. And it doesn't matter how many drinks they might decide to have. So they can guarantee their expenditure and you can guarantee your income with this type of model. And then the last model we are going to look at is the crowdsourcing model. So in this instance, again, you don't own a cow at all. What you're doing is you are going to try and convince a lot of people to help you buy a cow. So what you do is you raise your profile and your visibility with the help of these investors or supporters under the agreement that you will give them, for example, the first batch of milk that you ever produce. And you'll give it to them for free because they have invested in you and your business. They've decided that you are a safe bet and they want to give you some money to follow your dream, to create this service, to create this product. And what you've done is said, thank you so much for your help. I'm going to give you some freebies because you've been so great in endorsing me and supporting me and helping me start my business. very similar to things like Dragon's Den. So with this model, it's quite nice because it's other people's money that you're spending, but it obviously requires the input from these investors, these supporters, these advocates. So you really need to work hard in the initial stages to get people on board. Obviously, some of the harder elements of this model would be you're trying to convince people of your product or service without a track record to show them how good you are, maybe without a brand, maybe without a name. You're trying to convince quite high level people who are risking some element because they're funding you with their own personal money or their own business's money. You're trying to convince these people that you can do what you promised without being able to show them that you can do what you've promised, if you see what I mean. So you're relying on the input from other people, but your part of the deal is that they will get more out of it in the long run. So that might be special deals for life. It might be you just get the first batch free. It might be you get a reduced rate as your business continues, things like that. So like I said, an example of this, if you've seen it on the TV, is Dragon's Den. We often do Dragon's Den events within the team as well. And this is where the business owners are seeking funding from a particular dragon or any dragon, but rather than straightforward investment with them, these dragons require something in return. So they want something out of this deal that will benefit them, and it's usually a share in their business. So the crowdsourcing model can take various shapes depending on what it is you want to give back to your original investors. That might be an ongoing share in your business. Like I said, it might be continued reductions on your products or services. It may be just one big free batch. Whatever you decide for this isn't wrong. It's just, you just have to come to that deal with your investors. What are they expecting? What is it you can provide? And as long as the pair of you meet in the middle, then you've got a pretty good relationship going there. So that pretty much covers the type of business models that most startups follow. So there's a lot of food for thought there, how you might be structuring your business. You might draw from different elements of the models, things like that. But this kind of gives you a more basic view of how each model could work for you. So I'm just going to... James has been on top of the chat. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to hand over to James, and he is going to start to take you through the various steps of the business model canvas and then onto the value proposition canvas. I'll be doing your slides for you, James, so just let me know when you want the next one.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Right, okay, I'll just start with the first bit, which is, as Alexa sort of kind of alluded to, is Gaston's work kind of led organically to Osterwalder and Pinu in their production of the business model canvas and their business, which is called Strategizing. I think Alex Osterwalder wrote a PhD study on business models, and he used Gaston as a basis for this, and he then developed the canvas from this. So it's as a tool to look at and explain how the value process exists within any business. And the 9 building blocks, the key to the canvas is that the 9 building blocks are not to be looked at in terms of silos. They're not silos of activity. They are components, so if you like, subsystems of the whole of the value of the whole of the business. So how they work together actually kind of allows us to then create the narrative of the business in its entirety. So if you take a canvas, if you go and find a canvas of a business that's already done, Uber or Nespresso, as somebody put on the chat earlier on, and looked at the canvas at that particular area, you should be able to articulate from that where that value exchange is taking place and the narrative of the business that supports that piece of delivery. So, you know, it's a tool that creates common language as well. So that's why, you know, a lot of the time why we use it within working with students or working with businesses in general is because it's a great leveler. It's one of those tools which is intuitive and at the same time, I guess you would say there's simplicity, but it's dealing with a complex set of circumstances. But it's a very simple tool to engage with, to use, to play around with. And the other beautiful thing about the canvas is that it's a great space to change things, to actually move component parts around the canvas and start to challenge your thinking about the assumptions that exist within the business. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions between a business model canvas and, say, for instance, the business plan. And one sits within the other. So the canvas is an explanation of the business model that sits within the business plan. The plan is, if you like, the strategy of delivery, the piece of research that people are involved with, the arguments, the evidence, the analysis that sits behind the business model, and also the strategy at the end of the day that was going to get people to deliver. And I think that that's where people get confused. They think about the business model or the canvas or whatever as being a business plan. It's not. It's actually something which you should be engaging with fluidly throughout the entire time that you're developing and thinking about your business. So if we can take a look at the canvas as you would see it in a normal kind of situation, they're the 9 building blocks. On the right-hand side, we've got the customer segments, the kind of relationships that we want with our customers. So the customer segment is very specific, the people that we want to talk to, who we're offering value to. The relationships, well, are they virtual relationships? Are they bespoke relationships? Are they relationships that are built around experience, or are they highly, if you like, highly dispersed relationships that exist online only and that are delivered or touched upon through technology or some aspect like that? Knowing what those relationships are and the customer segments means that at the end of the day that we have the ability to communicate effectively and at the right emotional levels our value that we want to actually deliver to our customers. And I always kind of, again, I allude to this idea that within business, we are in the realms of entertainment. We are creating activities. And I think one of the challenges is, for me, is that, say, for instance, there's an awful lot of debate at the moment about the high street, about what's going to happen with the UK high street. And I just think that we have to reimagine what the high street is. I think we have to reimagine the high street as a center of experience, a place of fun, a place of engagement. The most valuable high street in terms of real estate in the world is Main Street Disney, right? Where people spend $300-400 or whatever to get access to a high street. And what do they get when they walk down that high street? They get immersed into an experience. They get immersed into a gala, festivities. They get immersed into parades, into shops that sell their brand and develop what they're doing. If high streets should start to reimagine themselves in that light and what they could ultimately do, so if they could imagine themselves as a place of entertainment, then their canvas, those high street canvases, would look really, really different in terms of the value proposition and the kind of relationships that you would end up having with them. So the other aspect on that side of the canvas, if you like, is the channels, and that's ultimately our ability to talk to people. We'll go into each individual one a little bit more going through, and then everything on the other side of the canvas, if you like, on that left-hand side as you look at it, these are the kind of the hidden things that we do, the hidden areas of activity that exist within our business. And we unpick them, we work at them, we try and populate them effectively. Okay, so I think one of the things that, if you can go on to the next slide, that we think about is a metaphor, right? And I always think that one of the great metaphors for this canvas is to think of canvas as a theatre. So everything on the right-hand side is front of house. Everything on that part there is the value bit, the visual bit, right? You've got the value proposition is the presentation, the stage, the thing at the end of the day that kind of puts out and projects what it is that you're offering. Those relationships, whether you're kind of bringing people into an auditorium, whether you're taking people on a particular journey, what kind of relationships are you creating for them, that the excitement that you're developing within your business for those people and how that's making them feel. that customer segment. Who is this play directed at? Who is this piece of theatre that we're doing actually there to direct at? Because not everybody is going to go to the same piece of theatre, right? Not everybody is going to go to The Lion King, right? But not everybody's going to go to The Mousetrap. Not everybody's going to go to that. There is a relevance to being really specific about what's being delivered on stage to what that customer ultimately wants, and how those channels are being reached through the billboards, the marketing, and then the evaluation as well. What people experience when they walk through that door, how they then feel about what they are, the opportunity to critique the play, to talk about it. That's why intervals are always a really fundamental thing within theatre. It's not just about giving the actors the opportunity to rest. It's actually about encouraging people to stand around and talk about the play, to actually engage in that period of excitement, to understand what that first beat is, to look forward to the second act or the third act or whatever. And then ultimately the ticket sales, the revenue structures, what we're doing there, that's just one aspect of it. You know, now theatre is always about different models of ticketing. You know, there's you know, become a member of the Young Vic, you know, gain access to different aspects of the theatre, go on theatre tours, you know, become a member of that, go to use the restaurant. There's a members restaurant. There's things like that. All of that kind of stuff adds value and extends the relationship that you're having with your particular client. And then again, you follow that metaphor through. Everything there is very visually tuned to those customer segments. All at the back end of that, the key resources, the script, the director, the whole kind of activity there, the whole sort of gambit around that. These are all really, really important parts of what goes out into the front bit. So those key resources, the actors, the orchestra, the soundtrack, the actual play itself, the writer, the director, the lighting people, what those activities are that each of them do to get this play and this production on stage. And then also those partners that they need to make this happen. Right, the kind of key partners that, you know, if you're talking about a theatre company, they need to partner with a theatre. They need to partner with the lighting people. They need to partner with maybe the music directors of different organisations. I apologise for my dog. Right, so all of those different things going on in that sort of area. That's those key partners help grow and deliver, if you like, the footprint of the business. Yeah. Somebody coming to the door. Cost structures, right? So again, what sort of costs are we incurring? The key costs here for a theatre, obviously the theatre hire is a big key cost, the paying the actors, but there's a degree of promotion, marketing, delivery. Those are key costs within the business. What sort of costs are they? Are they high value costs, right? Hiring a back end theatre in the middle of London, off Broadway, as it was in the States when you had off Broadway and on Broadway, there was a differential. One was a low cost access to it. There's a high cost. So again, thinking about those metaphors that exist around it is a really useful way to think of your business in that creative, if you like, or in that sort of entertainment zone. Okay, so now on to the next bit. There are three kind of key areas again within this. There's this area of desirability, and there is this thing about feasibility, and there is this thing about viability. And those three, if you like, those three interconnecting circles are part of what we kind of go on if you think about the design journey around your business. You are the conductors, you are the leaders of your business, you are the person holding the baton at the front of the business in the orchestra. And your job as leaders is to make each of these areas of the business sing. Right? You need to make the harmony happen. And to do that, you need to have this idea of a desirable product or service, something at the end of the day that really people not only want, but they need, right? And that they need that benefit. They need some aspect of it. If you get that desirable aspect right, then people, you know, will come to you. People will recognize your brand. People will understand what it's about. And on the other side of that, there's no point just having something which is really, really desirable if it's not actually possible to deliver it. It doesn't mean to say that at any given time when we construct a canvas, if the feasibility of that delivery isn't as great as we'd want it, that's the challenge of you in the orchestra pit and then holding the baton, is to consider, how do I make this feasible? What partners do I bring into my business to make the footprint bigger? Who do I want to work with in terms of driving resources into my business? And those resources, don't forget, they're not just financial, they are human resources, they are social resources, they are ecological resources. What are we doing within the business that actually can grow that resource pool to make something happen in the activity sector around what we can actually produce within our value proposition? So again, that feasibility is an important aspect of it, because without feasibility, the desirability will never get delivered. And the bottom line of that is we want something which goes on. We want something which is sustainable. And the only way that things can be sustainable is if what we're producing outweighs what the cost of the production is. If one outweighs the other, then we have to fill the gap, right? We have to basically figure out what that is. If our revenue streams are lower than our costs of delivery and our value proposition suffers on the back of that, then ultimately the whole desirable and feasible aspect of your business starts to wobble. So viability, not only just simply from an economic perspective, but viability around the business from a social perspective, from a footprint perspective in our environment. Is it viable that what we're doing can actually deliver something which is desirable, but if it's doing harm to society or to the ecology or to whatever, that makes it far less viable, right? Because there is a footprint that we don't want. So we have to be considerate to all of the things at the end of the day that make it viable. And again, our own involvement in the business is a crucial aspect of that part of the equation as well. Do we have the time? Do we have the energy, the capacity, the competencies, the skills, the values to be able to actually deliver what it is that we're setting out to deliver? Right? Have we got that passion to see it through, right through to the word go? That's part of viability as well. So part of what we're doing, again, with any form of assessment, when we look at businesses, is we want to know about those personal restraints, those personal considerations as well. We want to know about how people are going to make this work and make things happen. So what I want to do is just literally, once we've been through each of those areas, is just look at the kind of the building blocks in each individual bit. And like I said, they're not, we can't think of them as in terms of silos. We have to kind of think of them as interconnecting subsystems of the overall business that we're trying to deliver. The important point out of this is there is no right or wrong place to start, okay? A lot of people start with customers. A lot of people can start with the value proposition because we have an idea, we have that kind of area to do it. But sometimes we can build businesses from the assets and the resources that we have at our disposal, right? They can be the drivers of our businesses just as equally as can the value proposition in its entirety. In fact, sometimes our own competencies are the thing which shapes the value proposition. And our challenge then is to find the customers that we believe at the end of the day will actually want what we're producing. Equally, we could have a conversation with people down the pub and say, right, okay, listening to what they're saying, and they come up with, you know what, if this could happen, there's a gap in the market. There's something that could happen. Now our job is that we've got a customer segment, so we now need to analyze and think about that. So these 9 building blocks are all kind of connected. So what we're going to look at first, we'll go on to the next bit, is basically this sort of section here. We're going to look at that bit, and the value proposition we're going to draw out a little bit more later on. We're going to look at the other canvas as well that goes alongside this. So thinking about the value proposition, sorry, next slide, Alexa. Right, this is ultimately what it is, what you hold in your hand. It's a description. It's the job that I'm doing, the pain that I'm taking away from from the people I want to serve, right, and the uplift, the gain, right, that you want to provide them. There are only 3 ways that you can leave people in business, right? You can leave people the same as you found them. You can leave people with a frown or an upset looking face, or you can leave people with a smile. And in business, that is what we're aiming for, to leave people with a smile, because that is the area at the end of the day around what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to give people that benefit. So the articulation of the value proposition is just that. The job that I'm doing is this, the pain that I am relieving is that, and for you, basically, this is the value that you get at the end of it and the gain that you're getting, right? How do I know what's that value from the customer? That's where your job as an entrepreneur is to find mechanisms to test and understand that, right? It's not an easy process because we make massive amounts of assumptions in any form of delivery and any form of canvas that we create. But your job is to make sure that we get those assumptions into the public domain, that we build something, that we have some method or some output that can test this particular process. So going on to the customer segments, the segmentation side of things, right? In where you are in a lot of respects. For every customer segment, there should be a value proposition, right? For every different customer segment that we are identifying, we need something that matches that particular need, right? It's no good having a huge customer segment and say, I'm serving everybody, right, with one value proposition, because that's never going to match or fit that particular customer or a particular. It might hit the mark on a few, but it's never going to hit the mark fully on everybody that you want to target. That doesn't mean that you are myopic. It doesn't mean that at the end of the day that you are contained, and it doesn't mean that you've got a business which can't grow. It means that you're working effectively to solve the problems of certain people that you want to target. Do that really, really well. And what you end up doing is you end up creating ripple effects within your business, right? An outward movement that extends the value beyond that initial customer segment. That's when people start to change, to talk about your business, to refer you to other people. And then your job as the entrepreneur is to constantly evaluate that communication process between the customers that you're hitting and what you're delivering. And then you can actually start to think about, how do I modify? How do I augment? How do I upgrade? How do I do things differently? So these customer segments, personality, needs, benefits, all of these kind of things, these are things that we can build an avatar on, build a persona around, right? We can understand our customers and what they really truly want. And knowing that and really understanding that and connecting with that at a particular level means that when we start to hone in and start to really think about the value proposition and what we're offering, we can start to actually address some of those particular needs and concerns. So it is, at the end of the day, that kind of idea that we are serving our customers, right? It's not, they're not serving, they're not serving us, we're serving them. That we are delivering something which ultimately addresses all of those particular needs and benefits that they need, that's right for their personality, okay, that connects to them at that emotional level, and ultimately finds people that can pay. I've got loads and loads of people that often come to me and say, I want to create something for startup businesses. And I always say to people, okay, that's great, that's lovely, because startup businesses generally are really quite impoverished when it comes to support, resources, and various things around that. So the first question I ask is, how are you going to get them to pay? Right? How are you going to get a startup business to actually open its checkbook and see the value of what you're doing and pay? You've got to make sure that that startup business has the means to pay for your service, right? And if they haven't got the means to pay straight away, how can I structure, right, my business that allows access to our service, but extends or facilitates a better means to pay for that customer? So these things are always challenging. These things are always things that you've got to start to unlift and unpick within your business. It's never straightforward. That's the key thing. It's never an easy question, right? And it's never something which is set in stone either. Okay, so next block is channels. And this is really, if you like, the way and the means and the mechanisms that we create, the systems and processes of delivery and visibility. So marketing sits firmly within the channeling space of around what we do, how we get found, our social media channels, our website. But that's not all it is. It's also about how that kind of facilitated payment, like I was talking to about then, knowing that our customers are impoverished customers means that we have to think about the channels and mechanisms that they want to pay. So that's part of that process. We bring in different subscription models. We bring in loss leaders. We bring in freemium models. We bring in different things that get people involved, that explains where the value exchange exists. Channels are also about, if you like, the ability of that customer to be able to evaluate your services, your offer against other people. All right. This idea of, once they walk through the door, they're yours is not the question. You've got to win their attention, if you win it based upon their ability to be able to judge you against other people, then they can see the value that you're offering. They can see at the end of the day the differentiation that you are creating in your business. So you want those open pathways to evaluation. You want them to be able to see you stack up against your competitors, because they can see at the end of the day. So when you look at a lot of, say, for instance, the SAS models, the services as software models, or software as a service models, and you look at them, you go into them, and you often get the evaluation templates that they'll do or whatever against themselves, Zoom versus Google Meet versus whatever. And there you've got the tick boxes, the different payment methods, or the whole thing. Amazon's a prime example. Yeah, Amazon will put all of that evaluation at the bottom of your buying screen. They'll stack that one service up against, or one product against all the others. Why do they do that? Because they want people at the end of the day to buy into where they are, and ultimately think about what they're buying and why it's of good value to them. And the other aspect of channels, which is somebody you often forget, is that post-purchase ability to stay connected to your clients. Good business models create stickiness. Good business models create the ability for the client to want to stay with you for a long period of time. And the truism there is really true, which is ultimately it costs more to acquire a customer than it does to keep a customer. And that acquisition cost versus retention is the thing at the end of the day, a metric that you guys ought to start to really think about. I have a metric in my business, even though I don't have customers at the moment, or I want them or whatever. I have a metric in my business that I want to keep my customers entertained for the next 190 days, right? And that when I keep that customer for 190 days, I want to be building in each new customer on top of that. And if they're dropping off before 190 days, I want to know why. I want to know why they haven't gone into the next buying phase, why they haven't gone into an upsell, why they haven't gone into a new area. And that's an important part of driving metrics within the business around things like the channels. Okay, next one. Okay, customer relationships, self-explanatory, lots of different ways of being related to your customer. There are lots of different ways that we create. This is about customer journeys as much as anything else. It's about creating touch points within the business, right? So whatever your business model is, whatever you want to call it, subscription, membership, transactional, whatever the kind of thing, you've got touch points within the journey. And each touch point is an explanation of the kind of relationship you want with your customers, right? The bottom line of it is, and out of all of that kind of stuff that exists, is retention, right? And acquisition still. Right? What is the best way to retain customers, and what is the best way to acquire them? And the two need to be pretty aligned, right? To make it work effectively. There is no point just casting a wide net and dragging people through if at the end of the day, as soon as you drag them into your business, they drop out the other end, right? Because that's an expensive process. That's the road to ruin. Right? I had a business where I was spending an absolute fortune a month on Google Ads and pay-per-click marketing, right? I was spending about, I don't know, £2,000-3,000 a month on these adverts, and I was getting back probably quality. I was getting back a high proportion of people and interests of leads, and I was converting maybe 30% of those leads into actual true prospects, and probably of those true prospects, I was probably converting 10%. The maths still stacked up, because that's why I continue to do it. But the bottom line was, that what I noticed was that everybody that was coming through Google, my retention rates were very low. They were dropping really, really quickly. They were doing short burst activity as opposed to extended period activity. I was much, much better at getting Facebook ads working at a much lower cost per ad, but I was getting much, much better in terms of targeting because I knew who my customer was. And then my retention rates actually grew. So there was two channels, Google Ads, Facebook. Facebook worked for my business. Google Ads worked, but didn't work particularly well. They were still effective in terms of bringing revenue in, but not in terms of retention. So there was a large proportion of costs going out and quite a lot of retention missed at that end. So lining up those things, those ducks, is really important. And it's the kind of relationships you want to build within the touch points of that customer journey. And even more crucial now in the post-pandemic world, or we hope post-pandemic world, right, is that there is a low touch economy that we have to engage with. There is a new mindset that our customers are becoming more and more attuned to. Their behaviors have changed. Their values have modified, have become more accentuated in particular areas. And we've got to recognize in business that our job is to appease anxieties and soothe tensions in order that we can create the right level of activity with those people. Okay, there are a lot of people that believe that we are, going back to what we were before, but actually habits have probably become ingrained and embedded, and they will take a long time for us to shift. Even those people who are being forced back to work are basically having to remodify what their thinking is, right? They're having to reevaluate that whole process. So customer relationships, we have a job within this to actually recognize post-pandemic, this low-touch environment, this low-touch economy, and what it means. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so revenue streams. We've touched on the idea of the business models being basically that kind of idea of bringing in different areas. I would say that there is, all of those are relevant around revenue streams, how we actually get people the money into the business. There is in channels, there is also an area of revenue streams, making that frictionless, the payment structure, using different technologies like go cardless or something like that, that would allow people to stay connected to your business for a period of time that's cheaper than the traditional banking methods, right? Revenue streams also are really, really crucial. There's no point just having one revenue stream within your business model. You've got to be out there creating 2 or 3, maybe even 4 revenue streams within it. The ability to be able to offer value and drive revenue into your business through different areas, not just simply the one transactional or the one subscription area, the one model. There is an opportunity to think about multiple different revenue streams that come through the business. And I will put this out there as well. It's the fact that with revenue streams, a lot of people think of them in terms of kind of independent things that operate in the background. They're an exchange rate, right? They are the measure, the exchange rate between value of what your client sees and the value that you see that you're offering. Therefore, when people talk about revenue and pricing and various things like that, they become quite emotionally confused, quite emotionally distant from the particular problem, because when somebody says no due to price, it's actually a rebuttal of what you're saying is your value, and that's quite a personal conversation. That's quite a personal experience. So finding what revenue streams work and that can actually work to the level of what your customer wants is a crucial part of that process. You've got to kind of work really hard to figure out which revenue streams are the ones you want to focus on within the business that can actually drive different revenues into your business. And ultimately, if you can, the panacea with anything is to create or to keep those revenue streams growing, but also not to be too bumpy and lumpy. So if you've got seasonality in your business, if you've got some aspect of it, finding mechanisms within that can smooth that seasonality by changing the value proposition, by changing the customer segment, by utilizing the same resources and assets within the business, but using them in a different way. Okay, so a lot of the organizations, I always say it's about caterers. They were like, I work with cafes and restaurants, and they will say, oh, we're really, really quiet on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I go, well, why are you offering Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday the same product that you are offering on a Saturday and Sunday? Why don't you offer something different on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday that appeals to a different market segment and a different customer base, right? It doesn't have to be cheaper. It just has to be different and more effectively delivered to that customer segment. So that's where the canvas starts to get really, really good, because you can go into somebody like a restaurant and say, you have a value proposition for a Saturday night, right, where you've got couples, but you've got no value proposition for a Sunday lunch where you've got families. You're just using the same model for one to the other. The same with your Monday offer, the Tuesday offer, the Wednesday offer, right? But you're still open. You still got assets. You're still paying for things. So all these things is about getting creative and getting invested in the different things that exist around that. Okay, so on to the next one. So we're going to talk now a little bit more about the back end of the canvas, those things, the key resources, key activities, the partnerships, and ultimately the costs. So on the key resources side of things, like I said to you, you can build a business out of resources as much as you can. Sorry, on the next one, Alex, that'd be great. Thank you. You can build a business out of resources with no problem whatsoever. They are your assets. And in fact, what you should be doing in business is, and in any business, is thinking about assets that you are building within that. These can be physical, tangible assets. They can be digital assets. They can be learning assets. They can be assets around intellectual rights, property, whatever you want, you're looking at building within your business. But actually having a mindset to make assets work for you within the business, that at the end of the day is the thing and the driver of revenues. Right? So building businesses because you've got assets, right, is an important mindset. It shifts you off the canvas, the traditional space of operating. So I work with a building company, and I was sitting there talking to them about it, and they were looking at it and they were telling me what they were doing. And I looked at what their asset collection was, what they had, and I did an asset inventory. It wasn't just physical assets about materials, possessions, whatever they had, but it was also about the people, what they were doing. And each one I was challenging them to say, how can you get more from that one asset, right? How can you get more from you know, the yard that you're building, the yard that you're working in? How can, that's an asset. How can you get more from that, right? What about the sunk costs into a piece of capital equipment? How can you get more from that when it's lying idle? What can you do more within that space? What about the people, right? You're not working the people all the time. You're giving people off, you know, in periods of time. So what can you do more that can leverage them and use them and make them feel more a part of your thing? The challenge with all the businesses is to look at your business, the assets that you have within it, and challenge yourself to do more with them, to build more within them. Because if you build a business based on assets, it means there's two things. Firstly, your business retains value and grows in value. It's like a house. It's like something you look after and care for. You build the asset, the brand. You build the brand, which is an intangible asset, but you build it, you develop it. And the ultimate thing is, like all assets, like intangible assets or physical assets or whatever, but they sit within your business, they grow around that, and they attract revenues into it because people want to get hold of a portion of that asset, and it has an exchange value, does an asset. And the second thing about assets is that you can go away on holiday, right? And that is a blooming crucial thing, right, in anybody and in business. Again, so many people in trades I talk to that say to me, oh, I haven't had a holiday for 3 years or 4 years. And you look at them and they're completely frazzled, right? They're completely, absolutely worn out. And the reason is because they are the business. They have not created a business. They have created a job, right? They have created something at the end of the day that just solely relies on them. And that's not an asset. They can't be the only asset in business, because at the end of that, if they want to sell that asset, they can't sell themselves per se. They can only, at the end of the day, they've created their own jail. They've created a place where, in fact, they can't move out of. So the bottom line is in business is you don't want to create that, right? You do not want not to go away on holiday. You want to be able to stop for 2 to 3 weeks, enjoy what you're doing, right? Spend time with your family, spend time with your friends, come back to your business refreshed, enlivened, all of those different things. You cannot do that unless you build assets in your business, because an asset will work for you regardless of whether you're there or not. On that score, Harry, I'm not sure being a perfectionist does. I think there's two things there. One of which is learning to let go, right, of your business in that respect, learning how you delegate, learning how you lead people to become better involved in your business, so that if your core value is to be a perfectionist, right, then that's fine, but recognize that core value, if you like, is a belief rather than a value. I believe I'm a perfectionist. And ultimately, in that particular point, that allows you room, right, to grow into that particular space. It also, as a leader, allows you to think about how you can as a perfectionist, build the best team around you that you can possibly build. How can I build the best people around me? Because when I go away, right, I want to be able to feel really comfortable and confident that those capabilities and those resources around me will carry on doing what I want them to do. And that, again, is one of the weaknesses for an awful lot of businesses, is they build and then they hold all of the strings and the resources back because they're fearful that they're handing it to people that won't do as good a job as they will do, right? The chances are they will do a different job to what you're doing, but expect and respect those people. Okay, on to the next one. So key activities. Clearly, they lead from the kind of the resources that we have within it, because the resources, the assets that will drive the activities within the business. But you are, I go back to this, you are leaders within your organization. You are you have the baton in your hand. You have that ability to be able to manage those activities within the business that will deliver that particular business model. Right? And you've got to step up to this. This is something, at the end of the day, there's a challenge for everybody, right, in the business world. Startups, people who are building organizations. Everybody starts out, right? But the bottom line of it is, in 10 years' time or 5 years' time, if you're in the space that you love, if you're doing something which really does float your boat, and you want to make an impact in the world that's bigger than you and what you originally set out to achieve, then you are going to need to learn to lead people with you and take people on that journey, right? That is not something which is unlearnable. You are not born a leader. These are abilities that you can develop and that you can engage with and you can practice. So leadership is like any form of other muscle in your body, right? We have a muscle. We use that leadership muscle all the time. We find opportunities to practice leadership. So the first thing I did when I left my job in the city and moved into my local region was find a model that I could learn to lead, right? A place where I could start to build a community of people and actually start to lead that community in a particular way. And that's something which it just becomes, it's electrifying when it works. It's about finding then core people around you that really do feel a part of what you're about. You practice articulating the vision that you want to create. You constantly communicate that vision. You engage with the idea of change. You follow that theory through. These are activities you bring about to make things happen within your business. And you have that baton, you have that ability to be able to actually conduct all of the assets within your business as though it was an orchestra and really make the value proposition deliverable and the customers, at the end of the day, the right people that you want to deliver it to. Okay, final one. I thought that was final one, it might not be. Key partnerships. One of the ones that get left behind quite a lot on the canvas, but probably the biggest single building block, in my opinion, in today's world. We are no longer in a world where we can go alone. We are in this together. We have to find ways to collaborate. We have to find mechanisms to bring about an increased level of footprint on the business. The thing about partnerships is that they are not just simply relationships like suppliers or customers or whatever. These are win-win situations. These are people that will augment and create visibility for what you do, and you will do that in reciprocity for them. So partnerships are about win-win situations. They are looking for those clear, defining win-win sort of conversations that you want in business. Knowing what your business does, knowing it could do more of it if it had more resources, means that you should be looking all the time to find those partners out there that A, match your values, and B, understand the value of that relationship and how you want to generate that win-win. Okay? And if you find those partners and you want to work with them, work at building that relationship. Because it de-risks your project, right? It de-risks what you're about. One of the myths about entrepreneurship is that all entrepreneurs are massive risk takers. Well, actually, all entrepreneurs are massive risk mitigators. They know what they want to deliver. They have a vision and they have an absolute aspiration to deliver it. But they understand at the end of the day that there is an opportunity to mitigate risk on that journey. And the reason they do that is not because they want to constantly hand out and share their any sort of kind of outcomes or rewards, but they actually understand that doing it together is a better way at the end of the day, a more secure way of delivering their opportunity, their value proposition. So this is where key partnerships, learning to collaborate in a safe space or in a good space to actually make these things happen, right? That is some aspect of business which gets forgotten. And partners also motivate us. Partners also, they incentivize what we do. And when we hit dips within our business, it takes a lot to climb that hill again. And we'll all hit dips. Don't go into business without thinking that you're not going to hit some form of dip. That could be a failed product, failed service. It could be anything, a customer that just simply doesn't like you and disses you, or whatever. It all happens in business. The bottom line of it is partners, true partnerships will push you through the dip and get you out the other end. Why? Because they share the vision and the values of what you're trying to achieve. They see the bigger picture, right? They bought into the bigger picture of the business. So a good example of that might well be, I was thinking, or I'm still thinking of developing a journal, an academic journal, a physical production, but I want it to be 100%, if not more, sustainable, right? I want it to engage with sustainability. So finding a partner like a printer who is solely with those values is a real kind of then a part of that challenge, something that you really, that helps us grow their footprint, grow our footprint, and create that reciprocity between the two of us. It's not just about the supply chain, it's about the value chain, about what we're creating. Okay, so the final one on the area that we now go into is the cost structure. And the cost structure, there is this area of, okay, look, costs are always the best costs are the low costs. Well, actually, not necessarily. If you're delivering a high value proposition, filling your cost base with low costs, it's out of line and out of kilter with the value proposition you want to do. Cost drivers matter within the business. Understanding what drives your costs is a really crucial thing. Aligning your costs to your core brand and to your value proposition and to the kind of viability that works with you. There's no point having a low cost product or service that drives low revenue value into your business if you're incurring high costs, because it's not viable. Equally, there's no point having a really, really low cost base and a very, very high revenue model, right? Targeting an elite customer base if all you're doing is selling them stuff that's of low value and low cost. So you've got to align the two. There's a trick around that kind of process of thinking. And it's also thinking about those cost structures or those costs that we would occur more of, and the most important costs within that space. So it's not just about, we all know that we're going to spend some money on, kind of some legal expenses. But if we're actually selling legal services, then that cost will be very, very high and significant about what we're offering. Equally, right, if we're actually offering something else within the value proposition, legal services are a cost, but they're not necessarily a big cost in proportion to what we're trying to achieve. So thinking about the most significant costs is an important part of the canvas. So that's pretty much the blocks explained and looked at. I will just mention a couple of other things very briefly on a canvas, and we cover a little bit of this on the value proposition canvas, is that canvases are high level, right? They are visual tools that we sit at. It's all right, you can stay on the VPC slide, it's fine. Right, they are visual tools that we sit at, right? So the idea with the canvases is that we don't crowd them out. We don't overpopulate the canvas. We don't think about things in too much granularity. Do not write oodles and oodles of words on a canvas, right? The best canvases are ones that have few stickers or few drawings or few things that pick up the essence of what that business is all about. Because you want then the canvas to be an engageable process. You want to be able to lift off. This is why stickies work so well with canvases. Hard to do. We have a PowerPoint which does allow us to move stickers around and all the rest of it. But the best canvases, I had this when we had at Studio X. I had a big Perspex canvas sat on the wall at Studio X, and I would just either project the canvas on there, or I'd hold the canvas up on the wall, and we would work on the canvas by just lifting stickers up and down and just asking and going through there. Canvases, like all things, are just conversation pieces. They are discussion tools. They are things at the end of the day that where we can move stuff around and think about those relationships. And when we take one relationship or one customer or one value or one asset off the board and replace it with another, then we then start to think about, well, okay, what has that done to the relationships that I now have, right? So all of a sudden, those relationships that I've got, maybe one of them becomes a customer, right? So maybe a partner becomes a customer, or a customer becomes a partner, right? And you can change things around on the canvas. And as soon as you do that, you start to reinvent your business. Okay, so high level, lots of different, use stickies. Tend not to write on the canvases unless you've got a pad of them. I've got a pad of canvases in the desk, which I kind of just then take out, and I'll just use a pen and crayons, and because I like crayoning and coloring in stuff, and just draw pictures on them. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's the way that you start to kind of reinvent and think about things. Go for it, doggy. Okay. Next one, the value proposition canvas. Excellent. Okay. So the value proposition canvas is this. It's the bit that sits in the middle of the big canvas, the business model canvas, right? And it also sits on the customer segments. And the reason why these two have been drawn out into an individual canvas is because of this idea that one relates very much to the other. All right. So the value proposition canvas relates very much to the customer segments. So the value proposition is always about, if you like, that thing that we're offering, that service, those bundles of activities that we're doing, and that we hand over to the customer side, and the gains that the customer wants, the pains they want taking away, and the job that they want to be done for themselves. And if you've got that, then you end up with this idea of a fit between the two. Something that syncs, a synergy between the two, that is like, it's almost natural, right? And so again, thinking about those ideas of, let's take an espresso model, right? An espresso business. So the gains that the customer want, they want a simplified way of getting one cup of coffee, not without having to make lots of different coffee. They want high quality coffee, really tasty coffee, right? They may want different coffees and different things without actually having to open up masses of different boxes to achieve all of that. The job that they want done, they want it simple, they want it to be put into a machine that's relevant. They want to push the button, they want to make that happen. The pain that's taking away, well, okay, it's taking away all of that faff of buying multiple different packets of coffee, letting coffee go out of date because it's not getting used, or buying too much of coffee that you don't like. All of those different things, they're the pains. The value proposition, well, we have an espresso pot, we have an espresso machine, we have the pods, we have those sorts of things. At the end of the day, the product and service, we deliver them the machine does the making of the coffee. It's a really simple thing. It's taken away all of that pain. There is now no waste, because we're buying what we like, and we're buying it in a quantity that's got longevity, and we're giving people, if you like, from a gain point of view, we're kind of giving them that ability to experience really nice fresh coffee and in a pod. That's the kind of fit at that high level. It explains what Nespresso and Nescafe created in that one machine and those pods, right? It doesn't need any more explanation. Everybody now can see that. Your business, if you can make your value proposition as simple as that, right, and as clear as that, and clearly aligned to your customers, you've got a great chance of creating a fit. But the challenge out of all of that is quite clearly, right, that it doesn't happen overnight. Okay, you'd be really, really lucky if you manage that to achieve a product market fit, right, on a real customer and real customer segment, that quickly and that effectively. Okay, on to the next slide, please. Okay, so we talked about customers, customer segments. I just wanted to kind of emphasize this whole idea about not being myopic. So a lot of people always, quite a few people, should I say to me, oh, you know, when you ask them, well, who is your customer? They'll say, well, actually, pretty much anybody that buys coffee, right? Well, the bottom line is it's not everybody that buys coffee, okay? The bottom line of it is that your customer, right, is very specifically targeted to that value proposition. And that's fine, because you could then create a new model, right, and a new value proposition that would head to another customer segment. But once you've built, right, up that kind of resonance and relevance in the target sector that you're doing, there is a bleed into other sectors. There is referral, there is word of mouth, there is all the good stuff that will actually then start to stimulate and grow. That's when you then start to grow your customer segment and then start to change your value propositions to actually start to become more relevant and significant to that one sector. Okay, so it's a fluid, dynamic process. We want to constantly evaluate this. We want to find mechanisms, surveys, responses, rewards. Doesn't matter what it is. We've got to find ways to actually have these conversations with our customers and really develop and grow. And that's where one of the tools that we don't talk about here, but within the design thinking space, is the co-creation model. Actually designing and creating products with your customers that align to their particular needs. It's a great way of doing it. You build advocacy, you build that. One of the things when we're talking about crowdfunding, when we were talking about the crowdfunding model, it was then about, well, okay, what about, you know, kind of how we grow that community, of people, right, in order to reward it. One of the most successful crowdfunding models, love them or hate them, and they're going through a bit of turmoil at the moment and a lot of kind of bad Twitter stuff going on, but it's Brewdog. Brewdog built their business, right, out of a brewing business, out of crowdfunding, out of crowd models. And they basically, one led to the other. And I think it was a bit about building the crowd first. Well, actually, do you know what? In fact, Brewdog decided that they were going to go the crowdfunding route, and then they used the offer to grow the community. And then the community got the reward, which was beer and shares and ownership and feeling all really good about it. And then the community started to grow again. The challenge with any business model or whatever we do is you have to build the audience. You have to build the community around various different tools. So knowing that within the customer segments is a dynamic part of that process, being relevant, talking to the right people in the right way. Okay, so on to the next one very quickly. I know we're probably running a bit late on time. So this is the value proposition canvas. Like I said, keeping it sweet, keeping it clear, doing all of those various things. Use drawings, use diagrams. Don't just simply think about it from a if you like, a kind of a verbal perspective. Any drawing is for you, it's for nobody else. Nobody else is looking at it, so it's for you. But it's also a discussion point. When I say nobody else is looking at it, you want to be able to hold it up and talk people through this particular process. So get the creative juices flowing. Use the pen, use the paper, right? Use the screen, use whatever it is. Don't just simply, you know, kind of write verbal stuff, because there's a great, I don't know if it's a saying or not, but it's something I firmly believe. Is in language, when we write stuff down and we put a full stop at the end of a sentence, the thinking stops at that particular point. When we draw something, right, when we actually put pen to paper, we allow for interpretation and emergence of our thinking. We allow other people to tell us what they see within the image and within that. So in the world of systems thinkings and tools along those lines, there's a thing called rich picturing. And it's a metaphor. It comes from enriching the thinking around a particular subject, right? And the enrichment comes through diagrams and through drawing. They could be stickmen, they could be whatever, but it's about simply allowing people to put their own interpretation onto the visual around that particular problem. Canvases are absolutely work best when you start to engage with them through drawings. Okay, on to the next one. Big no-no, overpopulation. They end up looking like a big pizza. You can't actually see anything's going. Things are either over the lines or they're not actually relevant. Use colors by all means to differentiate between, you know, customers or now and in the future. This is what we offer now. This is what we would like to offer in the future. right? This is our customer segment today. This is our customer segment tomorrow. So use different colors by all means to do that, but lift out the, you know, the granularity, lift it away, because it just becomes too complicated, too much thinking. Always focus on the primary drivers, the things in your business that really matter to your customers, right? We all know customers don't want a lousy service. That's your job. You're not going to give them a lousy service. So this is what it needs to look like. It needs to be clean. It needs to be articulated. Once you've got that, you can start drawing links between the two. You can start circling stuff or lifting tabs off and rewriting a particular thing. It becomes that much clearer, that much easier to look at and articulate. And it also becomes clearer to actually explain things, to use the language around the development of it. Right? So these are important tools in the process of developing your business. They're creative tools, they're visual tools. They're really, really important in that respect to actually get things going. Okay, so we're just a little bit behind time, I think. So we're going to just go in for a 10-minute break. Before I do that, very quickly, got any questions? Anybody? Can I have a thumbs up to see if anybody's actually awake?
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
You hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a doubt in when we talk about the revenue streams, the same thing, but I think I already booked a one-to-one session with you for
that's fine.
in July.
Fine.
Yeah, it's about pricing, right? So
yeah,
like finding value of innovation in the revenue stream. So yeah.
I think innovation pricing is one of those really challenging sort of topics, because you're obviously pricing something which at the end of the day is new. And there is this idea of co-creation, of finding a space within the customers and actually asking them, what would you pay for this particular service or product, right? There's an element of that. There's an element of exploration around that. But pricing is one of the bigger hang-ups for a lot of businesses. They get to a particular point, they design something, they have a customer, they do all of that. Now they're not quite sure exactly where to pitch that price. All I would say out of my only bit of advice is don't price to a marketplace. Don't simply price to what that customer or what another producer or supplier is offering, which is similar. Evaluate the values of your business, right? You can have a price that works, and you can move the value up or down within that pricing spectrum until it resonates at that level with that particular audience. And the other aspect of it is what works for you within the business. That idea of knowing how many units you've got to sell to cover the costs of what you're actually doing, and how many people you need to have on board within your business, how many customers, their value, their retention of those customers, how much they're going to spend, what you're going to be upselling them to. Those things are all indicative of how you set that price.
Okay. And do you think, James, that it will be possible that we, I don't know if this session is in the channel and the YouTube channel, because it will be really helpful to check again every time that we're making the canvas.
We are recording it. It will. Don't know when it will be. Sort of uploaded and in there. A lot's got to do with Christian. I know he's just going to have his wisdom teeth pulled, so he may be far less conducive to sitting at a video screen and doing stuff. I don't know. So but it will be up there on that particular point. But I'm very happy to do one-to-one sessions on Canvas, on stuff to go through it, to go work with you and that kind of thing. All right.
Yeah, well, one of the things, if I can say it, it's I encourage to everyone like to build it, because the canvas is something that is changing all the time, you know. So for me, in my case, for example, I did my first business model canvas of my startup 3 years ago, and today, this morning, I changed everything almost, you know. So every time it's something that is changing, and it shows that you are like developing more, and it
shows your business is moving. And if you don't, you're absolutely right. It is a living document. It is fundamentally a living document, right? I do a canvas probably once every I don't know, 3, 4. I do it when things change. I've just submitted some funding bids for one of my businesses, and I've just gone that. And so the first thing I do is go to the canvas, right, and start to reevaluate the canvas. Where that maps to the funding criteria. What can I be doing within that funding criteria that maps to the canvas? So it's kind of looking at it from a revenue stream, saying, well, okay, if this is my revenue stream that I'm getting from my funders, what are my funders asking for me to do for that revenue stream? And where within my business can I map that value proposition back to that piece of funding?
Yeah.
Right. So
Thank you.
The beauty of the canvas is truthfully, you start it anywhere that you want. It's the challenge of doing it. It's and I actually find it incredible. I do really enjoy working with them. I really enjoy the process, and it's just become so enlivening. Okay, all right, 10-minute break.
Yeah, if we come back at about 22, just grab some refreshments, stretch your legs, and then we'll be back here at 22.
Lovely, bro.
So what we're going to do, we are running a bit over, so we're going to move on to talking about the startup visa specifically now. So what I'm going to look at first is, if I can get my slides together, is the home office criteria. So now we've moved on from the business model canvas, we'll look at the certain steps of the application process of the startup visa that may only be relevant to some of you here, but you're welcome to stay and listen if you'd like. So part of your visa application, a really, really important and essential part of your visa application is meeting these home office criteria. So what are they? They are innovation, scalability, and viability. But what do they mean really? So innovation, we've discussed a bit about innovation and creativity before. So what we're looking for is creating an innovative product or service. And your innovation can come in a variety of ways. So for example, your product or service can meet a new need in the market. So does it have an advantage against an existing market need? What is it you are fulfilling that's not already out there? This can help you example or evidence the innovation behind your product or service, which is really key to securing that endorsement for your startup visa. There's also things like an innovative structure or process that you may have in the background of your startup in general. How does your business operate? Is there something innovative going on with the way that you process your products, maybe in the way that you manufacture your products, in the way that you operate your services, in the way that you handle your team or your staff, things like that. So the whole point of the innovation section is to highlight what innovation means to your business. And then you want to showcase that innovation to us, to the home office specifically. So when we come to look through your applications and the explanation of your startup and what it is that you're providing in your value proposition, we're going to be looking at how innovative your business or your product or your service is. And so innovation is the first part of the application to be essential to meet the home office criteria. That's not set by us, it's set by them. Then the next step we've got is scalability. So scalability, as you can imagine, is how you are going to build, grow, multiply, all of those words. How are you going to expand your business? So this can mean growing to a national level or even a global level. It's great to have those future prospects in mind. You need to understand and again demonstrate to us how it can be grown in such a way, how you can multiply, how you can build on what it is you are offering to make it expand across the nation or across the globe, or just expand in general. So what you'll be doing as part of your application is providing information to us to show almost like a long-term growth plan. You want to block out how you are building on what it is you're offering to show that in the future you can offer more, you can offer greater quantities, you can diversify from what it is you're providing to add that extra level, to add that scalability into your business. And that could lead to potential job creation for other people. If you start manufacturing 5 products a week and you can see that in 3 months' time you're going to start manufacturing 250 products a week, you then are creating this potential job position for somebody else to come on board. The whole point in the scalability is to show how much value your business has and how much more valuable you can make it as you go along creating your products and your services. So a structured growth plan is really important. It might be a completely separate document that you refer to. There are only certain key pieces of information that we ask you to provide in your application. But having all of these plans and this forward thinking in place is not only beneficial for your application, but beneficial for you and your startup in general. Having an idea of where you're going, see your future vision. Yes, it might be a huge big picture that you feel really far away from right now, but the point is it's something for you to work towards. It's a dream, it's a goal. We can't just, I don't think any entrepreneurs are ever just happy with what we've got. We always want more, and we always want to build on that, and we want to grow. And that is what we are asking you to demonstrate in your application when it comes to it. And then the final part is demonstrating viability. So James talked a lot about viability in the business model canvas. That is showing that your product or service is viable in the marketplace and it will do well, and then have the scalability on top of that. So in order to demonstrate the viability of your business is through thorough market research. We will always go back to the market research. It's an essential element of the planning of your business. It provides, again, you that comfort and support that you know what you're doing is right, but you need to now evidence that to us as a team. And we need to appreciate that and understand that enough that we are confident that the Home Office will think that as well. Again, it all comes down to them and their decision on providing that visa for you. I'm just going to let Sean in. Another element of the viability of your business is the skills and the knowledge and the experience that you may have, or the relevant partners. All of these things add to the viability of your business. How can your partners help you make a success of your business? How are the skills and the knowledge and the experience you've gained throughout not only your studies, but your life and the start of your small business? How do all of these things work together to show us, again, how your business is viable? And it's not just, this is my market research, this is why my business will work. It's not just, I've got a degree in this area, that's why my business will work. It's also understanding that we need to be certain that you will be financially viable. And this includes whether it's realistic, whether it's achievable. So I know in other events and workshops, we talked about SMART goals, and a lot of that is whether it's realistic, whether it's achievable. Saying I'm going to earn £1 million in the first year of my business is lovely, but it might not be viable. It might not be realistic. It might not be achievable. So the point in this meeting this criteria is to prove to us, again, and just to reassure yourself that what the financial expectations you are setting yourself are realistic and achievable in the time frame. And again, this will all come out when you're doing your financial forecasting and your profit and loss accounts, things like that. You can start to build up this bigger picture of how you're creating revenue, how that revenue will grow in a realistic and achievable timescale. And part of this, you can take into account your personal finances and how you're supporting yourself, because it's not just making profit from the business. You need to remember that you are, with your startup visa in particular, you'll be here and you need to support yourself. So your personal budgeting, we've talked about it before in boot camps and things, personal budgeting and understanding how much it costs for you to live basically is really essential. You don't want to miss that bit out, because it's relevant to when you're pricing your products and your services. It's relevant to how much you use your budget towards various elements of your business, marketing, advertising, etc. You need to make sure that basically you can pay your rent and eat as well as run your startup at the same time. And then, as I said, there's the long-term financial forecasting. So understanding how you are getting money in, where your money is going out for today, for next week, for the next 6 months, for the next year. All of these are super beneficial and again, will help us understand how viable your business is. Juan, yes?
Sorry, I have a question just in that particular thing that you were mentioned. And the thing is that, for example, in my case, I'm planning to take the startup visa and also get a, I don't know, maybe a part-time job or a job while I'm developing the idea. So should I put that like, well, I'm planning for stay in the UK, get a part-time job, or maybe, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah, list all of the ways that you're considering how you're going to support yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, it was that. Thank you.
So we'll move on. Hi, Sean. Sorry, we're just going through the visa application process now, and then I'll hand over to you shortly. I'm just going to do this quick section, but I wanted to say hi. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
The visa application process itself. Let's just have a quick look at what it is. So before the application, you will have been made aware via our various channels that there are a limited number of university students and graduates that we can actually endorse. So have that at the back of your mind. It is, as you can imagine, a very highly competitive process, and the endorsements aren't necessarily guaranteed. We are here to look through your applications to understand them, and we will endorse them as we see fit as a team. You can help your application by attending things like these workshops with Essex Startups. We really encourage you to build that relationship with our team. We offer one-to-one advice sessions. We offer a multitude of different types of workshops that will focus on really different aspects of all of your businesses, and all of them can come in really handy, and showing how you have interacted with our team will only be beneficial for your application. Also, yes, as the bottom part says, we are always here. We are here all year round, all throughout the summer, so you can get in touch with us via the inbox. We're here to help you. We're here to answer your questions where you need us. And as James said, you're welcome to book one-to-one advice sessions with us where we can talk you through the business model canvas, and we can advise you of how you are going along with that. The business model canvas, as you'll see, will be part of your application. So the pre-qualifying stage, if you are attending this workshop today, you should have already completed your pre-qualifying questionnaire. That was a prerequisite to attending this workshop. The deadline was Sunday, the 13th of June. So I'm hoping that you've all completed your application before you've attended today. If you've not done so, unfortunately, you won't be able to make a complete application in this round. However, there will be future rounds of startup visas later on in the year or at the start of next year. So the next stage is the application stage. So after today's workshop, which was compulsory attendance as well, you will start to work on to submit your application. Your application, I'll send the link out. It's another Career Hub form, pretty similar to pre-qualifying questionnaire. You fill in all the sections with as much information as you can provide us. Again, remember that you're selling your business to us. You're telling us why we should endorse you. You're showing us how innovative you are. You're showing us how scalable you are, and you're showing us how viable you are. So any information that you can provide in there just to really put yourselves above everyone else. Remember, it's a very competitive process, the better. And what we ask alongside this is that you submit a video pitch. Now, the video pitch should be no more than 3 minutes long. If you've ever been to any of our workshops and events, we're quite key on keeping our times specific. So yeah, no more than 3 minutes in length. And this is giving us an introduction to your business and idea, and again, explaining how you are innovative, scalable, and viable. We don't want to just see you reading out your application. We've read your application. We understand your business from that aspect. So your 3-minute video is your opportunity to really sell it to us. You might take the stance of creating a character who is your customer and leading from that kind of angle. So we can find ourselves in your customer's shoes, and we can understand your product or your service or your business in general more from that kind of perspective. So yeah, really use the video pitch as your chance to make us see something that you haven't put in your application, to make us understand it at your level. You are the ones that know your business inside out. you know your passion. We want to see that passion. Put it across in your video. It might be a video of you. Again, you might create a cartoony character type video. We're not judging you on how well you can produce a video. We're judging you on the content of that video. So just keep that in mind when you're creating it. Then what we'd ask you to do is, could it be in an addish format? Yes, it can. Yep. Anything that makes it stand out. Just think about this application process as you selling yourself in your entirety and selling your business. Anything that makes you stand out from the crowd, as you know with your startup, is really beneficial. Show us your USPs, highlight them to us, make us sit there thinking, wow, I just can't believe how amazing this idea is. So once you've created your video in whatever format that you like, we ask you to upload it to a site called Vimeo. It's really easy to use. It's quite intuitive. You can set up a free account there. So once you've uploaded your video, then you set the privacy settings to private or only people with a password. And what you do when you submit your application to us, there's a section where it says, provide the link to the video and the password. You literally just type those things in there. Then from our end, we can access the video as many times as we want and keep watching it over and over. Don't worry, all of these steps are available online as well. You don't have to remember this all, but I'm just trying to help you break them down a little bit. So the deadline for your application, as we can see here, is 11:59 p.m. at night on Monday, the 2nd of August. So you've got a fair time to work on your application and your 3-minute video. So these will all be asked to be submitted at the same time. So alongside your application, you've got your 3-minute video, and then we ask you to submit your completed business model canvas as well. Like James has said, we're here to help you with any aspect of any of these. We can't write and probably can't star in the video for you, but we're here to listen to your ideas. We're here to support you. We're here to guide you as best we can, basically. So after the application stage, there will be a review panel day. It's currently set for Tuesday, the 21st of September. All of these things at the moment we'll go with, they'll be online. I don't want to make any promises about any face-to-face anything at the moment. Everything will be online for now. So the review panel day, you'll be allocated a time slot nearer the time if your application is successful. It will be another opportunity to live pitch your business to us. Again, trying to bring in slightly different elements to what you may have put in your application or in your video pitch, but more importantly, it's for the panel to then ask you questions. You'll have about 15 minutes per person in total where you pitch to us for a minute, and then we'll sit there and we'll just ask you questions that we've come up with through your application, your video, and your pitch. So again, absolutely nothing to worry about. It's the same friendly, familiar faces that you see at all the workshops and advice sessions, so there's nothing to worry about. We're here to support you. Again, like we said, we want you to do well, so just keep that in your mind, and just be confident that you know your business better than anyone else, and you are the best person to talk about it to us. So after the application stage, if you are successful, after the application stage comes the review stage. So this is where some members of our team, you've probably met quite a few of us, will review your applications, and our reviewing will be based on the criteria that the Home Office sets, which is innovation, scalability, and viability. After this point, you will then be informed whether you have successfully progressed onto the next stage or not. If you do reach the next stage, then your application goes over to our international services team. And what they then do is process the eligibility checks based on your circumstances of entering and living in the UK. And that, again, is against the Home Office criteria. Unfortunately, we can't provide any exact timeframes to that because it is then out of our team's hands and onto the next team. But the international services team are here, again, to provide that support and do the turnaround as quickly as possible. As you can imagine, with everything due to COVID, we can anticipate delays in all aspects of administration. But if you want to have any reassurance or just check the status, here is the email address to contact the international services team. It can be found on the website. Again, we have got a Startup Visa web page with all the guidance on our own website, so you can recheck all of the details there. So if you are successful, the university will then issue a letter of endorsement for you, and we will do this as quickly as possible. Again, it's not our team that issue the letters, but this process does start to pick up pace then. But again, unfortunately, due to COVID, we cannot give a specific timeline for this, but we will endeavour to do it as quickly as possible. So once you've received your endorsement and your startup visa, you then have these fundamental responsibilities that you must adhere to ensure that your visa stays with you, basically. So the biggest thing, the main thing, is you must not start your business until your startup visa has been granted. You may not start earning revenue from it until you have received that startup visa. Another thing that we ask is that you must stay in regular contact with our teams. This can be via one-to-one meetings, attending workshops. You must be able to demonstrate and show us that you are regularly progressing your business throughout the time you are here. You must ensure that you maintain your immigration status and don't breach any of the conditions of that leave. Again, that's not our team setting that. You just have to meet the requirements of the Home Office and then continue to adhere to them. And you must spend the majority of your time developing your business. But as Juan asked earlier, can I take on other support to build revenue for yourselves? Yes, you can. However, the majority of your time must be shown to be developing your startup and the reason why you have the startup visa. So here, the really important points are: you need to inform us immediately if you switch to any other visa type, if you decide to permanently leave the UK, and if you want to start working on a new business venture. Unfortunately, the rules stipulate that you shouldn't be changing your business idea once we have endorsed and you have received your visa based on the original idea. So you really need to tell us if that is going to be something that might come up. I'm just going to check the chat. These are exciting days. There's lots to be excited about.
Sorry, can I ask you other question, Alexa?
Sorry?
Can I ask you other question about something that you just mentioned? It's the first one you say is that well, we cannot like make money or whatever with our products. We shouldn't start the business before. But for example, in my case, if I want to, you know, like make surveys, if I want to bring the product, if I want to do that kind of things, can I tell you and maybe like well, I don't know. Yeah,
That's fine. Any form of research you can continue to do. If you want to talk to your customer base, you want to get feedback from everyone, you can. This is the time to really focus on your research, focus on building it, make your marketing plan, understand your advertising, look at your social media strategy. All elements of your business can be conducted. You just can't start selling basically until you've got your visa.
Okay, but for example, if I bring some pieces of my product and I want to like get feedback and also like try to taste the market, can I do it with, I don't know, there is restriction, totally restriction, and I cannot bring anything? For example, well, I'm talking especially with the phone cases, so maybe can I bring like some of them, don't sell it, and try to get feedback?
I think
customer?
you can still
You
talk
can,
about it.
you can certainly bring a product and sort of kind of share it for with people to get feedback, but you can't sell them that product, right? You cannot generate revenue within your business. Okay, so you can build an audience, you can talk to people about what you're doing, you can develop the ideas and discuss things with us and with people outside and things like that, but you cannot just physically have a bank account and and take revenues and do anything that would incur or imply that your business was operational.
Okay. So sorry, just before I move on to Sean, all of your responsibilities that I just previously mentioned in that section and the tell us if part, I just want to make it really clear that failing to comply with any of these terms, unfortunately, might jeopardize your endorsement going forward and your visa. It's important to remember, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news or scare anyone, but the university can withdraw your endorsement at any time. So it's really important that you don't breach any of the necessary criteria and you stick to the timelines and the guidance that we've provided. But again, we're all here to help you. If you have any questions, if you're unsure of anything, just chat to any of us in the Essex Startup team, in the International Services team, in the SU team. We're all here to provide information and support you as best we can on your journey. So that is the application process in a nutshell. Like I've said, the information is available. We will often talk about it in the newsletter. Again, if you need any more questions answered outside of this workshop, just get in touch with the Startups inbox. Now what I'm going to do is hand over to Sian, who joins us from the SU, and she has some more sets of guidelines and advice that she would like to give to you as well. Hi, Sian, thanks for joining us. I'll hand it over to you if you just let me know when you want me to skip through the slides.
Lovely, will do, thank you. Can I just check, can you hear me okay? The microphone's working? Brilliant, that's good. Hi everyone, so yes, as Alexa said, my name is Sian. I'm here from SU Advice. So some of you may be aware of SU Advice. We are here for students, run by the Students' Union. And we currently support students with their visa applications if they are applying to extend a student visa in the UK. But I'm here today just to give you some information about the actual visa part of the startup scheme and what you would need to be aware from the point of view of applying for a visa as well. So obviously Alexa and the team have been through with you the endorsement side and what you need to be aware of from the university. And this is just really talking about some of the Home Office rules and requirements that you'll need to be aware of. Okay, if you could switch slide for me, Alexa. So general principles of the visa, and again, this might have already been covered somewhat throughout your session this afternoon, but it is a 2-year visa. You can apply for the visa from within the UK if you have a current leave and permission to be here and it hasn't yet expired, or if necessary, you can apply from outside the UK as well. The key thing to really be aware of is that once the 2 years have run out, you cannot extend the startup visa. There are opportunities to apply under a different visa route that might be applicable depending on how your business is going and obviously your circumstances at that time, but you can only have 2 years on the startup visa. Obviously, as Alexa was just saying, you do require that endorsement to be able to apply and to be eligible to apply. It is an online process, the application process, so whether you're applying in the UK or outside the UK, you would apply online. And some of you may have family members such as a partner or children, and in most circumstances these are likely to be allowed to apply to stay with you in the UK for the 2 years. Okay, so if you could switch to the next slide. So in terms of being eligible, so obviously again, as I've just heard, you will need to have a business that is innovative, viable and scalable, and therefore endorsed by the university. You will also need to provide proof that you meet certain financial requirements for your visa. And you will need to have proof of your English language ability. And this is the CEFR level B2. And generally speaking, if you've done a degree at the university, you will meet that requirement. The other key important fact is that you must not have previously established a business in the UK. There are some very minor exceptions to this, but for anyone applying for the startup visa for the first time, you should not already have a business running. And as James and Alex were just saying, you should not be making revenue from your business before you get your visa. Okay. I'm not going to go into those exceptions because, as I say, it's very rare. If you think you might have one of those exceptions, let me know and I can advise further individually. In terms of the financial requirements, the Home Office rules and guidance say that you must have £1,270 and that must have been held for the consecutive 28-day period before you apply. However, students who are applying from inside the UK and who have been here for more than 12 months on the date they're applying are already deemed to have met this requirement. You won't need to provide further financial evidence in this case. But if you are applying from outside the UK, or if you haven't been in the UK for 12 months at the time you apply, then you will need to show that you have access to this £1,270. Okay, the key thing there is the 28-day period as well. So that means that money must have been in an account or in your name for at least 28 days and should remain in that account. The date of application will be the date you pay for your application online. So once you've got your endorsement confirmed by the university, and then you're in a position to make your application. Okay.
Is there any, sorry, when if I got the endorsement letter, that endorsement letter expires someday? Because for example, if I want to apply next year, or like,
I don't know that there is an expiration date on the endorsement letters. I think that would be something that, oh, someone's saying 3 months. I don't know, Alexa, if you're able to confirm that or not.
Yeah, I think they do have an expiration on them. I think if you're, I think it is about 3 months, because normally if people apply now and then they tell us they want to come next year, we'd say we'll wait until the next year's cycle and apply then, because they only start, they're only available for a limited amount of time.
So yeah, again, definitely double check that. But in terms of when you can start your application, you will need that endorsement letter before you're going to be ready to make your application. So if your visa expires before that date and you don't have a current visa, you should return home and you need to make your startup visa application from home in that case. But yes, so generally speaking, £1,270 in an account for at least 28 days. We do suggest you don't let that amount drop below £1,270 until you get your new visa approved, in case there are any problems or you need to provide additional proof. It's better to keep that money there for as long as possible. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of what financial evidence, how you can provide that evidence, there's a couple of different options. So with some letters of endorsements, and I don't believe that's the case from the university, but sometimes there is a financial award that can be given with the endorsement, and you may receive money from that organisation. So if that was the case, then you would need to provide proof of that in the endorsement letter. Generally speaking, then there will be the requirement to show the money either in an account that's in your own name, or if you do have a partner who's in the UK or applying with you, you can show that money being held in an account that's in your partner's name. Unlike with student visas and other visas you may have applied for, you cannot use money that is in a parent's name or anyone else's. It has to be either your own or a partner's name. So it's really important that you start thinking about that at least kind of a month in advance of the date you're likely to be applying, so that you have had the money in your account for enough time. The types of financial evidence are quite varied. There's different types of accounts. So you might choose to start thinking about that quite early. So around maybe August time, when you're getting your videos and things submitted, maybe then start to think about putting the money into a savings account and just leaving it there. You can use funds that are in a current account, so your everyday account. Some students have deposit accounts, and that's absolutely fine. I can see the question, I'll come to that in just a moment. There are also investment accounts, pension savings that you might be able to use. And the key thing is that you'd be able to provide either a bank statement, a building society passbook, or a certificate of deposit. It doesn't matter which country your bank account or your bank is based in. You can use accounts from any country. But you will need to show the evidence in, or show a conversion of the money into British pounds as well. So if the bank account you're uses an international currency, you will need to provide proof of the conversion rate to show that you have the money in pounds in your account. I'll come on to family members in just a moment. I saw someone had asked a question about that. But yes, essentially a bank statement is likely to be the ideal way to show this, or a certificate of deposit if it's in a deposit account, but it must be money that you can access immediately. So if it's in a fixed account and you can't get access to that money straight away, then that is unlikely to be acceptable as proof. Okay. Next slide. So there are specific, there is specific information about the types of financial evidence you can't use or you cannot use. So this would include overdraft facilities, Bitcoin savings. It's very specific about that on the Home Office web pages. Stocks and shares, Pensions, so just the fact that you have a pension is not enough, but if you have clear savings that you can access from having received your pension, that's fine. You cannot use credit cards, and you cannot use a bank account that does not use electronic record keeping, or a bank account that is not regulated by the financial regulation body in the country you're applying for. So there is more information on this on the Home Office web pages, and there is a link at the end of the presentation to that. But essentially, as long as your bank provides electronic record keeping and it is regulated by the financial body in the country that you're applying from, then you can use an account from any country. Okay, next one. Another key thing is if you are currently in the UK and as a student you receive financial sponsorship from a government or from an international scholarship award that pays for your tuition fees and your living costs, and if you have been in receipt of that within the last 12 months, you will need to provide additional proof that your government or agency are happy for you to stay in the UK and apply for this startup visa. The reason for this is some scholarships and government awards do require the person to come back to their country to work for that organisation, and that's why they've received that sponsorship. So the Home Office require you to provide consent that your sponsor is happy for you to apply. Okay, next slide, please. So I believe there was a question from someone about family members. So if you do have family and they are eligible to apply with you, there is additional financial requirement for them. So as well as the 1,270 you would need for yourself, you would need £285 for your partner, £315 for your first child, and an additional £200 for every other child you have. So again, this needs to be have been held for a consecutive 28-day period before you apply, and again in addition to that money for yourself. So please make sure you're thinking ahead. You know, as I say, maybe start thinking about it in August. Make sure you've got the money saved into an account so it can be held there without it fluctuating during that 28-day period. Okay, next slide. So the other thing to be aware of, as well as the money that you need to show in your account to prove that you have living costs covered, you would also need to have the money for your application fee itself. So the fee for the application is £493 if you're applying from within the UK, and it's also £493 for every dependent who's applying with you. If you are applying from outside the UK, it is a slightly reduced fee of £363, and again £363 for each dependent who is applying with you as well. EU applicants currently may receive an automatic reduction of £55, but only for the main applicant, not for the dependents. Again, I don't know how long that concession is going to be in place, but that is the current position. There was a question there about why it's cheaper. I don't actually know. That is the Home Office for you, I'm afraid. They don't actually let us know. Sometimes there are differences because of conversion rates, but obviously that's going to be depending on where you're applying from. But yes, unfortunately, that's just the published fees that they have at the moment. They aren't likely to change this year, but they may. There's been no statement to say they're likely to change soon, put it that way. The other thing, obviously, just to say about those fees is if you are applying inside the UK, you will also have an additional £19.20 to pay for your biometric fees, and I'll come on to that in a moment as well. Okay, so next page, please. The other main thing that you will need to factor into your funding is your NHS surcharge. So again, if you're currently in the UK with a student visa, you will have been likely to, or Tier 4 visa, you'd likely have to have paid a NHS surcharge. And this is the money that you pay in advance to allow you to use the NHS health service as you would if you were a UK citizen. As a student, you pay a reduced rate. Unfortunately, when you're applying for the startup visa, you would need to pay the full rate. This is £624 per year, and that's per applicant. So if you have a dependent partner, they will also need to pay £624 per year. If you have children who are under the age of 18, then they pay the reduced rate of £470 per year. But again, remember that your visa will be issued for 2 years, so you will need to pay roughly £1,200, slightly over that, if you are per person who is over 18. So again, you would need to pay this at the point of applying for the visa. So it is worth starting this process, thinking about where that money is going to come from and making sure that you've got that in place so that you're ready to make your application once you receive your endorsement letter. Okay, next slide. So this is sort of the end of my presentation, really. It's a very quick kind of run through of some of the main things you should be aware of. There is further information available to you on those websites that I've put up there. The UKISA website, UKISA is the UK Council for International Student Affairs. They're a national organisation that provide advice and information for students and universities and higher education institutions. But they also lobby the Home Office and support students' rights whilst they're in the UK. But they have a lot of information on their web pages about the different visa routes and the startup visa and what you should be aware of. And they also have a student telephone helpline. So if there is anything you're not sure of, there's details on their website of where you can get additional advice. And then the other site there is the immigration rules themselves. These in the past have been quite difficult to understand, but the current details in the appendix for startup is actually quite easily laid out. It's quite straightforward and it does explain all the different rules. There is also Appendix Finance, which provides more detailed information about the finance requirements and particularly for dependents. And then there's also the appendix for English language in case you wanted to check that as well. Again, as I say, by having a University of Essex degree, you will likely meet the English language requirement without needing to provide further evidence. Okay, so that is everything from me. And as I say, I know it's a very quick run through, but if anyone did have any questions, then obviously I'm able to stay for a little bit longer. But if not, you are welcome to contact SU Advice. We are open in Square 3 at the university in Colchester, but we also obviously can support Southend and Loughton students if there's anyone here as well.